Welcome to Discover the Difference, a podcast brought to you by C3. I'm your host, Jamie Reed, along with my buddies Matt Clark and Gabe Earl. Today we have John David Wicker, otherwise known as JD to his friends, who is the athletic director at San Diego State. We cover the NIL, the Pac-12, the building of Snapdragon, our amazing stadium here to San Diego. And we cover all the topics of how he brings in community and collaboration to make the world go round and create the success that he has at San Diego State. Enjoy this episode of Discover the Difference with JD Wicker. We want to hear all about the lead up to where you're at now, but can you zoom out for us for a second for people who aren't familiar with how universities are structured and the role of an athletic director? Of course, you have a lot on your plate, having gotten Snapdragon put in when the Chargers couldn't, Pac-12, all this stuff, buzz is happening that's really under your fingerprints here. What's the role of an athletic director in a university so those who are listening understand the scope of your job, and then we'll dive into it?
Off the top, it's managing 18 sports that we have at San Diego State. It's 500-ish student athletes. It's 200 or so employees, and making sure that they have what they need to be successful. But then it's also, our goal is we fit within the university infrastructure. We are part of the institution. You don't always see that other places. It's kind of like, well, we're athletics, we do our thing. But we very much want to be a part of the institution and really, make sure our student athletes have as much of a, college experience as they possibly can. It's working within the community. It's our donors, being, at all the different events that we possibly can. We had the naming of the Black Resource Center yesterday, which is a really cool story of how that happened, $5 million donation for that. So, just try to be out there and really be, help build up the institution as a whole, because as the president has said numerous times, athletics is the front porch of the institution. And that's, a very important role for me, is to make sure I'm out there helping, build that.
Is when you say part of the institution, are you talking about like all areas, like the academics, the athletics?
We try to, we came in, we tried to build bridges. We wanted to build bridges across campus with academics, make sure the faculty know that we're, one of the big things is we've got 500 student athletes. We want to make sure they graduate. That is our goal. I mean, some people don't always think that, but our goal is to graduate 500 student athletes. So we want to work with, anybody across campus. How can we bring different groups in at different points? We've used the nutrition majors to come over, and they can get some practicum hours working with our student athletes, or, a lot of marketing students will come over and get practicum hours working with our marketing group, things like that.
How was the faculty taken to the NIL situation?
I don't know that there's been a lot of attention paid to that from the faculty side, really, or that I've seen.
How does it change things in your world?
It's definitely, it's a different approach. Obviously we want people to buy tickets and donate to the athletic department, because that helps us, fund scholarships. We like to say we fund a world-class opportunity for our student athletes when you do that. Now with NIL, there's real NIL where you're going out and you're, truly using your name, image, and likeness. And, whether you're doing a deal with Trujillo's, which is a great Mexican place right across the street from campus, or, Caden McDonald, who was a star linebacker for us. In the middle of a game, we were playing Utah, and he sacked the quarterback, and he popped up to celebrate, and he was like, something feels weird, and his front tooth was missing. So he was like looking for it. He couldn't find it, so he put his mouthpiece back in, and there it was, stuck in his mouthpiece. So he played the next play, pulled the mouthpiece out, took the tooth out, walked over, handed it to Brady, and went back in and, finished that series. And then he created, and he was a, handsome young man. He was from Texas. So he became the Toothless Cowboy. And he would, he had apparel, he would do, videos for people, he would show up and do autograph signings and all this stuff. And it was a very lucrative venture for him, and that was, that's true NIL. And then you have the collectives where, donors or other people will, either donate money or, they're paying a membership to be involved in it, and then those collectives are paying student athletes to do various things.
Did anyone donate for dental work?
I don't know. I mean, I don't think. Well, he did have a. He ended up getting a fake tooth put in that he could take in and out so that he could keep his toothless cowboy moniker. Yeah, I tell you, he probably hit six figures doing that in a year.
Wow, that's amazing.
So it says you were the forefront of the name, image, and likeness for what's happening. How do you feel the path is taken, and do you like where it's going, or would you like, if you feel that you don't have to answer it if you don't?
That's a loaded question. I mean, we were one of the first institutions. We hired somebody full-time when NIL became a thing, and I think it was July of 21. We had someone in-house that was, their job was to help our student athletes build their brand, understand NIL, understand going out and getting deals, and things like that. Our preference would be that that collectives would have to do deals that are market rate, as opposed to, here's a bag of cash, come play for us. It's, here's this bag of cash and you have to do these 11 things, and it actually translates to what a market rate deal would be for someone. So we've spent a lot of time lobbying, Congress, as we try to get them to help with a national NIL bill, because you've got, 25 to 30 states all have their own NIL bill, all a little bit different. And so it makes it really hard to, everybody's got a different NIL bill in their state. And if you're trying to compete against those schools, like Missouri made it so that a high school student athlete could take advantage of their NIL, but only if they had agreed to and signed a national letter of intent with a school in Missouri. So if you're the best quarterback in Missouri in high school and you sign that you're going to go play at the University of Missouri, you can get NIL deals in high school. But if you say you're going to go to the University of Texas, you're not allowed to.
That's from Missouri. Like, yeah, that's a good start.
So you've got all kinds of stuff like that. So really, we're trying to, figure out what it's going to be. You've got House settlement, which addresses NIL as well, and we're waiting to see how that's going to play out in court.
Does California have a law?
Oh yeah, we were the first.
And how does it work?
It's more about you have to, you have to allow student athletes to take advantage of their NIL. You can't stop them from doing that. The only reason would be if, you have a category that you don't allow the institution to advertise in. Alcohol is a big one. Well, we have alcohol sponsors, so we're not going to stop a student athlete from, doing a sponsorship deal with alcohol. But a religiously affiliated institution might have a rule against that. So a student athlete, they can say, you can't do that. You can't go, sponsor Budweiser or, whatever like that. So, and then there's some reporting around it that you're supposed to report deals. Most kids, don't report all of their deals. Not that big a deal. But it was the first bill, and then Florida came in and passed a law, but with moved up the start date of it, so they could be the first.
It's a retroactive first. Does the whole NIL world make life better for an athletic director, or is it worse?
Again, real NIL is good. I'm excited the student athletes, because it used to be you couldn't write your own book, you couldn't give lessons. And there's just some easy things that student athletes could do. Social media influencer, I think he was either a place kicker or a punter at UCF. He just quit the team because he had so many followers on, whichever social media platform. It's more lucrative to do that than, to kick for, I think it was UCF. So I like that element of it. The whole collective piece is challenging. We've got two great collectives. They work well with us, Mesa and then Aztec Link. So, we encourage people to participate in that and, be a part of it. And it does help us move forward. But I think if, given our druthers, we would prefer that, there be a few more rules around that.
What are the biggest negative consequences that you've seen for NIL?
I think the biggest is, one, you've got to go along with NIL. You also had unlimited transfers. You're eligible to play immediately. So you'll have student athletes who will, it's like, hey, I got a better offer from whatever school. They might not be in the transfer portal, but somebody calls up. It's like, we need a quarterback or an offensive lineman or whatever. And they're going to, transfer to the other school because they're getting a better NIL deal or offer. Sometimes that's true. Sometimes that's not. You've seen some, I think the most egregious one was the Jaden Rashada, who's now a backup quarterback at Georgia, but he signed with Miami. And then the Florida NIL group, can't remember what it's called, went in and supposedly offered, I think it was a $13 million deal to go play at Florida, and he signed it. But then the boosters, the people running the NIL collective, hadn't really talked to the people that donate, and the people were like, I'm going to pay $13 million for an untested quarterback. So all of a sudden it blew up, and so he ended up got out of his commitment to Florida, went to Arizona State, and is now transferred to Georgia. There was an article the other day that at one point Michigan State last year, one of their collectives came out and basically said, we don't have enough money. And they ended some deals with some kids early, and I guess there was some discussion within the team of whether they might protest the next game and not play. So that was written. So I mean, it's stuff like that. It's because it's not very well regulated because for a lot of different reasons.
Regulated?
It's not regulated.
Yeah, that's what I'm saying.
Yeah.
What about you have the lawsuit that just went against NCAA, $50 million lawsuit by, I think it was some players from the University of Michigan on NIL.
Yeah.
That will be interesting to see how that plays out and what that does going in the future.
That probably, those, that particular lawsuit probably doesn't move forward because of statute of limitations.
Got it.
But that falls into the whole House settlement, which is 3 different lawsuits that have been bundled into one. And, the idea is that there'll be some injunctive relief in the going forward part of the settlement that will take care of those types of lawsuits.
It sounds like you really do need that governing body over the NIL, because I think from somebody who loves sports, as I do, and most of us here, is that when you looked at this, it was never supposed to be a bag of money.
Yep.
It was supposed to be, and I'm guessing when you started this, it wasn't thinking that would be collectives that pay bags of money, because you hear, and whether it's true or not, you hear Ohio State has got a $20 million budget for their football team. Well, that in itself just makes every other team be like, well, what are we doing?
Yeah.
Like, it's just too big.
Well, we had a set of rules. The NCAA had developed a set of rules that would go into place with NIL, and part of that was that basically if you were a donor to the institution, so if you basically bought tickets, you could not participate in NIL. But they ended up, because right as NIL was being allowed to start, that was right around the time we had the Supreme Court ruling on the Austin case, and basically there was the threat that if you pass these rules with NIL, we're just going to sue you and you're going to lose again. So the NCAA chose to kind of throw their hands up and say, it can't be a recruiting inducement, was basically what the rule was, which that hasn't really played out well for us either.
Yeah. Well, so let's transition to the stadium.
That's a much better topic.
That's like...
How in the heck do you pull this thing off? And it's an awesome looking stadium. It's a great venue. What all went on behind the scenes for you to bring all that together?
Yeah, that was a community effort, honestly. If you look at all the different pieces, you had to have the initiative process. We started, when I got here, it'll be 8 years ago, October 24th. Walked right into that stadium discussion. We were, having discussions with another group, Soccer City. They wanted to bring MLS to San Diego. They wanted to build a stadium. And so we were having discussions with them, and, the discussions broke down. It wasn't going to work. And so we went in different directions, and we really thought, and then the Chargers left right at the beginning of it. And this other group was, well-funded and out there with a great story and off and running. And we had a bunch of local, whether they were SDSU grads or people who, great community members, leaders that stepped up and said, no, San Diego State needs to have that property because the institution needs to grow because we're landlocked and they need to build a stadium. And so it just kind of took off from there. And
was there like a person behind that, or was it multiple people?
Jack McGrory, force of nature that he is, Fred Pierce, Kim Kilkenny, Tom Sudbury, Mike Neal, a bunch of people came together and, went out, fundraised, because this is something where you're donating to a political campaign. And they did a great job of, creating the initiative, going out and getting all the signatures. And, we were competing against Soccer City. They both could have passed. They both could have failed. And if they both passed, it was whoever got the most votes would be the winner. It wasn't, like pitting one against the other on the ballot. But, they did all the hard work. They fundraised. They got all the signatures. And then we partnered at that point where they would go out, and as a state institution, we couldn't say vote for Measure G because it was Measure G, because we couldn't support it like that. But we could go out and say, hey, if you vote for Measure G, this is what San Diego State will do with that property if we have the opportunity to purchase the property. And so, we had to be very careful with that, but we partnered on, I don't know how many presentations we made. I could have made that presentation in my sleep at that point, and, had a very successful campaign and won the election, and, and then, launched into a grueling negotiation with the city of San Diego, which was not any fun. I don't know that they really wanted to sell us the property. They had sued us to stop us from being able to do the initiative, but COVID hit and they had an $80 million hole in their budget. And, the price went from, I think, $69 million to $82 million. And the decision makers at the CSU were smart enough to know this. We're not ever going to get this property any cheaper than this, and we'll sign on the dotted line. And there you go.
Why didn't they want to sell to you? Like, what did they want?
They didn't like the idea, my understanding, ballot box, ballot box initiative land development. They would have preferred to, do it themselves or have more of a, something that's, going down the Midway district, which, we'll see how that continues to play out. But I think the way we did it was, very successful. I don't know that that's not how you want to do it everywhere, but, an institution of higher learning that's as important to the city of San Diego. I can't remember what I think our economic impact was like $4 or $5 billion to the city of San Diego at that point. And you're fighting that. I thought that was, found great irony in that. But at the end of the day, we were able to put it all together, and, we've got a great site.
So it's interesting. You think COVID helped make it happen? The budget shortfall and COVID?
That stadium doesn't exist if COVID doesn't happen. It's one of those things.
That's a positive thing.
It was one, the city had an $80 million hole in their budget. And it was a slog to get through all of that. But we took advantage of that moment. And then from a stadium standpoint, it was right at it was more at the beginning of COVID. So we were on the front end of supply chain. People needed work at that point. So we were able to put together a COVID plan where, we're mostly outside at that point. You're moving dirt, knocking down the old stadium. So it was easy to put together a relevant COVID plan that anybody could bless. The market was at the bottom. So we got bonding. For our taxable bonds for, I think, 2.875%. It's basically stealing money practically.
Free money.
So we took advantage of that with both the site and the stadium. We bought out all of our, for the majority, bought out all of our subs. So we got great pricing because, again, this was before all the supply chain and labor problems, and off and running.
Are there moments on that journey where you were just like wanted to crawl up in a ball and cry because you just thought there was no way through it? And if so, like, what'd you do in those moments to persevere?
We had our campus architect, for lack of a better term, Bob Schultz. He likes to say that, the project died 100 times, but we brought it back 101. So, you rely on your group. There's certain people that you can call and, vent to. Margie Newman Sy and Maddie Kilkenny and Tessa were, great partners in the whole thing, but they were somebody that I could really lean on and call. And, there was one moment where there was just a lot to it. And, one of the things we had to do was get alcohol approved, because in the CSU at that point at an athletic event, you could only sell beer and wine, and we needed to be able to sell spirits at the stadium. So we asked for a waiver, and they called me on a Friday afternoon at about 4:00 to tell me that the then chancellor had declined to provide us the waiver and we wouldn't be able to do it. At which point I stood up, and I had this really old stapler from when I worked the Olympics in 1996. I mean, it was a dinosaur, and I just hucked that thing across the room. So there's an armoire in my office that has a big hole in it that, is a reminder. So that's another way that I, released some negative energy.
Yeah. Wow. So how'd you rectify that?
We ended up, the chancellor was retiring. So the next chancellor came in and was more open to that type of thing. So we established a commission within the CSU and, created rules to make it, as safe as possible to be able to go and do these things to make sure the project was successful.
Yeah. Did you know at the time, already that you were, as part of the plan, that MLS team was going to be renting from you? Or
we did not. I mean, we envisioned, so the other group, had the ability, if they'd have built the stadium, they would have had an MLS team. So because we knew that, we had outreach with MLS. Probably December of 2017 was the first time we met with MLS, Charles Altchek, Don Garber, Mark Abbott, the three at the top of MLS at that point in time. And we just went to them. We met them in New York and said, hey, we just want you to hear our side of the story. We don't know that you're getting the full story, but if we do win the election, here's what we plan on doing. We want to have an MLS partner. We want to understand what you want in a stadium. We want to build something that will work for MLS and for football and for all the other events that we want to do. So we had regular outreach with them, and which helped. I mean, that was very beneficial down the road. But at that point, we didn't, we knew we wanted those types of things, but we didn't know we were going to have I had no idea we would have as much success as early as we did in the stadium.
So if you flip it and the election went the other way, what was the contingency plan there? To work with them
We would have had to work with them on a stadium, most likely.
And were you having that conversation as a backup plan, or?
I mean, we were also looking at other sites that we could potentially build on, but we would have probably ended up partnering with them on the stadium.
Yes. Interesting. Could have been so different.
It would have been very different.
And what would have that done to you? Like, I mean, were you dead set on winning that and that being the stadium?
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, they wanted to build, I think, a 20,000 seat stadium, which is more along the lines of what MLS is at this point, which we felt was too small for us. And, you don't own it, so you don't have access to all the revenue streams and all the different you're sharing all the different elements of the building as opposed to them being more of yours.
Really interesting. Well, good job. We're glad you guys got it. And I haven't been to a tailgate yet, but we're definitely going since you guys have Quinto in there as a partner. So I think we're all excited about it.
Yeah, the River Park opening, at the end of last year, we had always planned we would use that. I mean, because San Diego only knows tailgating on asphalt. Mm-hmm. I mean, if you think about the old stadium and all that. So this is more of that college experience of tailgating on grass.
Yeah.
It's a much more pleasant experience, and you have to kind of walk to it, but it's so much different than, being in a parking lot. You can, the kids can go play football, throw the football, do all these different types of things.
Yeah. So that's a Southern thing.
Yeah, it's a Southern thing. Definitely.
I went to NC State, so when I grew up, it was, all parking lots before they put the PNC arena in.
Yeah.
They concrete a lot, but they still have, a lot of space, green space, and it's just, the tailgate's just perfect.
Yeah. No, I grew up going to Ole Miss games with my dad, so they have what's called the Grove, which is amazing, and then went undergrad at Mississippi State, and they have the Junction, and it's such a fun place to go, and it's just, tents as far as you can see, and everybody's out there, and you'll be able to go and find all your friends and have a great time.
That sounds
Was there a desire to be on the West Coast, given your history in the Southeast, or how'd you end up at San Diego State?
I was at Southern Miss. I'd been there for almost 2 years, and it's a hard place to work. Not a huge budget. I was doing event and facilities at that point, and it was one of those things. You work a 12-hour day, and you go home and you feel like you left so much work at the office. So I needed something different. So a job at Washington State opened up, and I had a buddy that I'd worked with at Southern Miss the first time I'd been there. I worked there twice. He was on the basketball staff at Washington State, so it made sense. I was like, it'd be good to go out, try something different, see a different part of the country. The Pac-12 did things differently than the SEC, and schools in the South do it, and so made sense to go and try it. It didn't hurt that there was maybe a significant other who was working in San Francisco at the time as a travel nurse. She's not my significant other anymore, but so went to Washington State and ended up out there for 10 years, and what an amazing experience, and met my now wife Rachel when I was in Pullman, and more importantly got connected with Jim Sturk, who was the athletic director at San Diego State at that point, and then he ended up taking the San Diego State job in 2010 and brought me down in 2011 as his number 2, his deputy director of athletics. I was here for 4 years as the deputy, and then took a job at Georgia Tech. We were in Atlanta for 17 months before Jim went to Missouri, and this job opened up, and we came back.
It's like being a head coach.
So you worked with Jim for a long time.
I worked with Jim for approximately 12, 13 years. Yeah. So
Is that the thread through to the Pac-12 through Washington State, or does that come together a different way?
that came together more, one, when Jim got here, that was right about the time Utah went into the Pac-12. So it was like, okay, if Utah can do that, we can do it. And at that point, the academic institution was just starting to take off a little bit, get much better academically. And that's a key part. I mean, you've got to have good academics, especially with the Pac-12. So, with Jim, we started looking at it and then building what are the things we need to do to, invest in athletics to have that opportunity when it presents itself again. And, you fortunately had V.A. Haas and Steve Fisher and Brian Dutcher and what they were doing with the basketball program. And then a Brady Hoke and a Rocky Long were bringing football along nicely. And so we were finding a lot of success, and, we built the practice facility and all of that. And then you get to, when I come back, you get the stadium done, and then, USC and UCLA leave. And, we were the natural to come in and, replace them, just being West Coast based, successful academically, successful athletically. We play in the national title game in March before, they were going to make a decision to bring us in on August 4th, 2023. And, then it kind of blew up.
So interesting with that, you mentioned something there. You said that the Pac-12 does stuff a little bit differently than the SEC. What is it the SEC? What is it? What do they do differently? What's the difference in getting to those leagues?
So at that point, the faculty athletic reps, the FAR, so you have a faculty that is, the president's liaison to the athletic department, kind of making sure from the academic side of things and all that, the right things are happening, and they can report back to the faculty that the right things are happening. So the FARs had a much larger role in how the Pac-12 ran than, say, in the SEC.
You mentioned, working with Jim. What was your relationship with you? Was he more like a mentor, or, and then how would you contrast, your leadership styles?
Jim was definitely a mentor. It was great. He, at Washington State, it was one of those things where every time, I would, whatever it was I was in charge of, kind of get the hang of it, figure it out, kind of get it running nicely. And then I could go to Jim and be like, okay, what's next? What do I need to do to keep moving up in this business? And Jim was always great about doing that. We, great relationship. outside of work as well as inside of work. So that was, just kind of continued to move on along. We built a lot of trust with each other. So that was good. And, him bringing me down and trusting me to kind of be the guy that handled the day-to-day operations of the athletic department was, very meaningful. And, Jim was very collaborative. He wanted people to be involved. And that's something that I've definitely taken from him is, I've got a deputy team of, I think there's 5 deputies and then the FAR. And I want to make sure that, they're all engaged, they're all involved. I am not a micromanager. I'm going to hire good people and allow them to do their job. And that's something it was always fortunate Jim did the same thing. So I want to, really collaborative but at the end of the day you have to make a decision, so don't mind going out and making decisions and getting things done as well.
Well, was this always the track you're going to be on, like a dream to be an athletic director, or how does that come around?
I wouldn't say being an athletic director was my end all be all. I don't know that was ever most important to me. Most important, and I kind of figured it out about halfway through my time at Pullman. It was more important to be happy and be in a place that you enjoyed and working with people that you enjoyed as well. So if I got to be an athletic director, that was great. If I didn't, I was always in event and facility operations, or I was a number 2. That was going to be fine.
So when you were growing up before, maybe as a high schooler, did you have this, goal of always being in athletics, or is that something that just evolved over time?
Going into my senior year of high school, I wanted to be an aerospace engineer. And
Closely related.
Very
careers.
closely. People will recognize I'm a little bit of an airplane nerd. It's just I couldn't even tell you why, but they always laugh. If we're chartering or something like that, I'm always tracking the plane. All right, the plane's coming in, or if I'm just traveling, it's easy to track where your plane's coming from. You can figure out if it's going to be late or not, because the airline's not always as prompt as telling you when the flight's going to be late as you can figure it out. So got into my senior year of high school and took physics class and realized that physics made absolutely 0 sense to me. It's just one of those things that did not make sense. So the aerospace engineering went out the window. I was also in an accounting class, and that made perfect sense. It was really easy. Was really successful at that. So got an undergrad in accounting and was kind of thought I'd go through the business side of things to get into professional athletics. And I did like being an auditor. Once I finished, I didn't like driving a desk, and figured out you could go get a graduate degree in sport management, and went to the University of Georgia and was fortunate enough to work in their athletic department, which kind of set me off on the college path.
Yeah.
You're using FlightAware to track planes? Or
Absolutely, all the time. Well, there's FlightAware, there's Planes Live, there's a couple different ones, but yeah.
I was in Kansas City when the Southwest debacle happened a couple Christmases ago, and right before I hand them my bags, I'm like, FlightAware just said this flight's canceled, and they're like, there's no way FlightAware can know before Southwest system. So I hand them the bags, go through security, flight canceled. I'm like, gosh, not going to listen to these guys anymore.
Yeah, no, FlightAware is and I mean, they laugh at me. We'll go down to, we'll go sit at Liberty Station, and we'll be doing whatever, and I'll be like, oh, that plane's headed to Sacramento, that's headed to Seattle, that's headed to DC.
I actually do the same thing. I love doing it. I love doing it with my kids. Good. Actually, the kids love it because you'll sit up there and just watch the planes. And
yeah.
There was actually a skit, Peter Malinelli, he's a professional golfer. They just had a video of him, and he loves airplanes so much, he sits on tee boxes and watches from, then starts naming the airplanes.
Oh yeah, no, I can do that.
He knows exactly.
This guy's on the spectrum.
Yeah, the Airbus has a little bit more of a rounded nose. The Boeing is a little more pointed. So yeah.
We live directly under the flight path in Loma Portal, and we could tell you what plane it was by the sound of the engines, because there's the FedEx especially is a couple hundred feet over. What in your job, are there aspects of your job that are just difficult? You're almost a politician, right? You're a fundraiser. You're a business manager. What aspects of the job are most wearing on you?
Gosh, that's a good one. So funny story about a politician. And I can't provide full color to the story, but there was we were sitting in the director of football operations office. This was when I was the deputy, and we were having some field scheduling challenges. And Rocky at that point just looked at me. He was frustrated. He was like, "You're just a politician. That's all you are, is a politician." And I was like, "You're damn right I'm a politician. I have to deal with you. I have to deal with the coaches. I have to deal with the people across campus. I have to make all of you happy. So yes, you're right, I'm a politician." There may have been some colorful language included in there. And our DFO is just sitting there like, "Oh my God, is this going to happen?" And then me and Rocky were like, "All right, good." Fist bump and walk out, and we're all good. But you never know what's going to come to your plate. There's always something challenging out there, whether it's, what's the condition of the turf at the stadium. We've got soccer tomorrow, or, a student athlete gets in trouble. The whole Matariza sexual assault case, that was one of the hardest things I've ever done. Yeah. Just because of how that all played out. And, we're responsible in the sense that, these student athletes are San Diego State student athletes, and you're doing a lot of training, through our life skills program and all these different things to help them make, correct decisions, good decisions when they have that opportunity. And sometimes they do, sometimes they don't. But, how that ended up all playing out, that was a year plus of just really, wearing on you mentally. So you get all kinds of stuff that, comes up, and, you have to deal with the good, with the bad. And being a leader, you're going to hear more about people's challenges than maybe not, but it's just what it is.
With us at all.
Hey, and he kicks for the Chiefs now.
He does kick for the Chiefs. That's been, it's very happy for Matt
it's awesome
that has all
going away for him.
Gone the way it has. And
So how do you, besides of it, wins and losses, how do you measure success, in the, the 18 programs that you have?
114 student athletes graduated last year. Xander Shoffley won 2 majors. Shanika Ricketts won a silver medal. We've got football had their first 3.0 semester GPA last year. We had 366 of 420-ish student athletes last year were scholar athletes. So that means in the 2 previous semesters, they either had a 3.2 GPA or they have an overall 3.0 GPA. And then our Aztec Going Pro program, which is our life skills program, which I'm biased, it's the best one in the country because, I tasked our staff with creating it, gave them a framework, and then they took it and ran with it. So it's a 4-year, 4-credit class. But so they get 15 hours of professional development basically every year. But we've started an internship program. We had, I think, 38 student athletes last year had an internship. So if you graduate from San Diego State, you played, Division I Intercollegiate athletics, and you have an internship, you have a gold standard resume. You're going to go get a job.
Mm. How big a role does that play in recruiting?
For the parents, certainly a lot. Some kids get it. Some kids get it. Some kids don't get it till they get to school. Some kids just never get it. But, for parents, it's, I remember meeting a women's basketball recruit and their parents, and they were like, we visited, you list out Power 5 schools. They don't have anything like this. And it's like, no, because I want to make sure when a student athlete leaves, because we ask so much of their time, they don't really get that opportunity to go out and, have a real job or, be on an Associated Students officer or, all these different club things, all these different opportunities you get to kind of learn about, becoming an adult. So to put this around them, this wraparound service that they have the opportunity to, a little bit of everything over the 4 years is important so that they can leave San Diego State and, kind of have a leg up on other people.
Is that something that you would say is that you're most proud of, or?
It's definitely one of the things that, yes, that would be top 5 of most proud of my, time at San Diego State.
I think a lot of the best D1 coaches out there you hear have that similar life philosophy approach to the game, you know, and they're really underscoring creating well-rounded human beings that contribute positively to the community. And the programs that don't, you kind of see them be less consistent, you know, it's more peaks and valleys. How does it change the Pac-12 that's upcoming? How does that shift things for sports at the university?
We'll have to, we'll see who ends up being the next, I would imagine we had 3 to 5 more institutions to be part of the Pac-12, and we'll look at, what sports sponsorship will be. I don't envision it changing a whole lot. It's, just a different competitive set of institutions, and we're excited about who those institutions are because they're ones that are willing to invest in their athletic programs and want to succeed at the highest level.
Has the stadium really changed the way that funding is done for athletics at SDSU?
The stadium definitely introduced some new revenue streams for us. So that's something that we've been able to, whether it's plowing it into football or, specifically because they're the main beneficiary of the stadium, but, also just general athletic department budget, we've been able to do that. And then just having the stadium there for events, for recruiting and other elements like that, it's been big.
So you're going to continue is the Pac-12 going to continue on the state school? Seems like everybody they've added is
I don't know that will continue completely, but yes, it is. We have quite a state of the conference at this point.
And does it
They're
go
rumoring Colorado, right?
or Colorado State would make
Colorado
it
State is in.
and so they're just Colorado.
So yeah.
So does it when you make the transition to the into the Pac-12? Then you with NCAA do you go into one of the power conferences?
They will not retain their. I don't believe they'll retain their automatic, CFP slot.
Got it.
And they're not really at this point not considered. It won't be P5 again. We'll have to go out and earn that.
Okay. Yes.
Interesting. One more question before maybe we shift to rapid fire here. I don't know if Mia warned you on rapid fire or not. Okay, good. She must like you because most people she doesn't. But when the business of running that stadium, does that fall underneath you as a business to operate it and run a budget? And if so, do you look at like models like how Petco draws revenue into that stadium in non-sports ways, concerts and golf events and,
So going back to when I was at Georgia Tech, my office overlooked the south plaza of the stadium. Bobby Dodd, the oldest stadium, collegiate stadium in the country. And we had, a lot of debt on the building from renovations that we had done. And the building still needed a ton of work, and it just sat there in Midtown Atlanta, and we never did anything with it but play football 7 times a year. And so I vowed if I ever got that opportunity, I was, in the right environment, that I would create something that could be used 365 days a year. So fast forward, we get to San Diego, and, as we started the planning process, I told the architects a couple things. I said, I want a stadium that is 60% stadium and 40% unique to San Diego. You've got your seats, your concessions, your restrooms, those types of things. I said, but we're in this climate that allows us to be outside 365 days a year. So you need to design it so that we can do that as much as you can. I wanted a premium opportunities within the stadium that, everything from our largest donor all the way down to that young professional who's got a little bit of expendable income, that they can find something to do from a premium standpoint. And then it needed to be designed for football, for soccer, for concerts, for dirt shows, for all the different things. And fortunately, Gensler, our architects, they knocked it out of the park. They did a phenomenal job. We have the piers, which is the signature element of, unique to San Diego. You've got piers going out in the Pacific Ocean. We have a pier going out into the seating bowl towards the field. So that was important to have something that you could really utilize as often as possible. And then we went out and we hired Oakview Group, formerly Spectra, and then they got purchased by Oakview Group to run the building because I wanted a professional organization that did this every day. And they have the relationships with all the different promoters, whether it's the dirt shows or the concerts, the various soccer opportunities that we've had in the building. I needed somebody that could do that. I didn't want to go out and have to hire the expertise. It's easier just to put somebody in that space. And, they've done a great job doing it. Last year, we had 1 million people through the building. I joke we were a little too successful in year one. We had, from a concert standpoint, we had Jimmy Buffett's, last concert, which it's awesome that it was that, but it's also very sad. Big, I'm Parrot Head. So Buffett, Chili Peppers, 2 Coldplay dates, Pink, and Guns N' Roses. And then we've had U.S. women's national team, U.S. men's national team, the men's Mexican national team. We had Man U Wrexham. We had Man U again this year. We had Borussia Dortmund, Dirt Show. So you had monster trucks and motocross. We've had Fiji's All Black in rugby, which was a hard sellout. That was an amazing event. You have, all these different events, and then you have all the smaller events. That's very specifically wanted the concourse designed to be able to use it on a regular basis. So we call them garden areas where the concessions are. We have 4 different garden areas. So if someone wanted to rent one of those garden areas, they could, and you could rent a garden area here, and then you could rent a garden area here. We have local food purveyors, Hodad's, a taco stand, Chicken Shack or Crack Shack, all these different places that people recognize. We've got lots of craft beer. We didn't do any, very specifically made it so there were no exclusivities in the building for marketing partnerships outside of Snapdragon. Snapdragon has exclusivity. But beyond that, I wanted to make sure that all of our partners that come in, the MLS, the NWSL, the rugby team or concerts, they're not blocked from, hey, we want this automotive partner. It's like, well, no, we've already got Toyota in the building. You can't do it. Well, we've got Toyota in the building, but it's only exclusive to Aztec events. So if, one of them wants to have Nissan or Chevrolet on the front of their jersey or their kit, they can do that. So I tried to make it, the opportunity for everybody to be successful. And then the last thing, and this will take a while to figure out, but when we build out the site, there's 4,600 residential units going on the east side of the site. You got 1.6 million square feet of innovation district. On the southern end of the site, approved up to 400 key hotel with 40,000 square feet of conference space. So with those garden areas and having, all the different partners, well, you're going to have on average 15,000 people will be, whether they live in the apartments or whether they're working in the innovation district or they're staying at the hotel. So when the building's dark, you can open those garden areas up and block it off from the main stadium concourse, and people can come get Gaglione Brothers and a beer, or best pizza and brew. And again, ROI on a 365-day basis.
What a success story. That's awesome. I love that.
And there's not a bad seat in that stadium.
That was the other thing. We have a great rendering that shows the old Qualcomm with that low rise 40 or 50 row, because it was a baseball stadium. Let's be honest. Probably 75% of the stadium sits inside that low rise lower deck. And we brought all our premium down, because people now, if you're sitting in premium, you get to you're more involved in the game as opposed to sitting up high and you're behind glass or you're up above it. And we could also sell to people in the upper deck. You're basically sitting where in the old building where premium seat holders sat. So this is,
you have that boxes on the pitch now for soccer, right?
Yeah, soccer's going to do the boxes on the pitch. And that was something we had talked about doing early on, and it got value engineered out, and it wouldn't have worked well for the football setup, but we had definitely thought about that for soccer. And then you can, if you want to, take them and kind of gang them together and create, different pods for concerts if you wanted to as well.
Interesting.
That's awesome.
Well, congratulations.
Yeah. Thank you. Super awesome.
It's a fun building.
You want to kick us off on rapid fire?
Sure.
Red. No, I'm just kidding.
It's always black.
I was gonna say white.
It's one of your two colors.
Yeah. What is your biggest weakness, or what are your biggest weaknesses?
Well, that's a tough one. I'm really competitive, so that can kind of get in the way. At times, it's tough to be an athletic director and be an introvert, but I'm a bit of an introvert. Actually, I'm really an introvert, so I have to really work hard at that.
Good answer.
What's a cause that's really important to you?
I just rolled off the San Diego Food Bank, Jacobs and Cushman Food Bank. Hunger in this community is real. They do a great backpack program where kids, underprivileged kids at schools, mainly elementary. I think they're getting into middle school now. They get a backpack of food to take home with them on the weekend, because some kids leave school on Friday and have lunch at school and don't eat again until they eat breakfast at school.
Oh, that's crazy. I'm going to make this one personal. So what's the best compliment your wife's ever given you?
She tells me she loves me.
All right. That is a good one.
Yeah, it's a good one. Yeah.
What's the best gift you've ever received or given?
Best gift I've ever received or given. I'll go back to my wife. The fact that she went through the process of birthing two beautiful babies, Scarlett Ann and Waverly Lyle. That is. I mean, for those of you that have been through the process,
We're all there.
Your wife's on a pedestal at that point. So I've got
How
two
old are your
wonderful
babies
girls.
now?
6 and 11. So Waverly's 6, Scarlett's 11. They both play softball. At some point, we're gonna figure out Coach Mia's gonna coach them.
Awesome.
This next one I think Mia put in here.
Yes.
What's your favorite cheer?
My favorite
Cheer.
cheer.
Mia definitely has.
You need to get over here and ask these questions.
So we've got a there's a couple, because I went to undergrad to Mississippi State. So there's a couple of Mississippi State bulldog ones. We got some dogs up in here. So, and the girls love that because they'll wolf with me. So yeah,
That's cool.
For those aspiring to be in your current position who maybe are in college now, is there a book that you've read that had an impact on you that you'd recommend them pick up and read?
That's a great question.
Good job, man.
And I'm trying to think of the name. It's the book where you get on the bus, getting everybody on the bus.
John Gordon.
Yes, that is the name.
So,
It's Gordon. It is.
but that was really meaningful. It's basically everyone has to
Look it up.
You need everybody on the bus going in the same direction.
Into the car seat.
And and that's so that was a good one. Jim Sturk, we actually did that as we had an executive retreat, and we had to read the book going into it. And
All right. If you weren't doing your current job, what would you be doing?
I wanted to be an aerospace engineer. So
Physics
but
wasn't
so
okay.
it has to be something I could actually do.
Yeah.
I would be a chef. I actually before going into graduate school, I also applied to the New England Culinary Institute in Montpelier, Vermont, and basically flipped a coin and ended up at Georgia.
Oh, wow. Imagine how life might be different.
All right, so then the next question is, what's your favorite dish that you like to make?
I'm a dessert guy. I like to do desserts. I've hosted back in when I was much younger, like at Georgia, I would host dessert parties. People would kind of look at me, So there's a black bottom cappuccino mousse cake that's spectacular. A fudge pie. There's a good white chocolate banana cream pie that I like to make. So
You could be a chef at Extraordinary Desserts.
yeah,
after
I also
you
love
retire.
gumbo, black
Okay.
bean soup. I do, I've learned how. I am confident making a roux now. I don't know if you've ever had to make a roux before. It's a scary thing to make a roux. So I feel good about making a roux.
Looking forward to coming over, meeting the family, having some gumbo.
Send something to the party.
Well,
Maybe after
we do
softball game.
we do at the, so this is something that, again, Jim Sturk and I started at Washington State. We had, it was my first year in Pullman. I was a little homesick, and it was February, and that's crawfish season. So I saw Jim, and I'm like, hey, when it warms up, and Jim had worked at Tulane for a while in New Orleans. I said, hey, I think I'm going to order some crawfish. And I was like, you and Debbie should come over. And he's like, yeah. And so we had, I think we ran an NCAA men's basketball tournament that year, and then had, a couple of conference championships. He's like, let's do an end of the year party and let's have crawfish. So, I mean, people in Pullman are like, what the hell's a crawfish? So I'm now, that was 2002. This is 2024. I think we've done 20 crawfish boils as an end of the year athletic department party. Mia can speak to it. It's a lot of fun, and we always have something else on the menu for those that don't want to venture into the eating of crawfish.
So then one last rapid fire that we'll tack on here. At that party, did Mia have any signature dance moves that she broke out, or?
It's a different kind of party.
Oh, because we've seen some signature moves.
We'll send you the videos.
Yeah. You send us the book. We'll send you the Mia videos. Oh, you're going to come out on the positive for that.
So the name of this podcast is Discover the Difference. And, just part of the wrap up, we have a couple wrap up questions, but one of them is, you've had an amazing career and journey. And when you reflect back, and on that journey, and looking back at, the younger JD, maybe 15, 16 years old, what kind of advice now, what what would you give him?
Patience. It was one of those things. It felt like, it had, you had to take that next step. What was that next thing that I needed to accomplish? What was that next move that I needed to make? And I think I referenced it earlier, about halfway through my time in Pullman, I realized, enjoy what you have. Make sure you're in a place, you enjoy your job, you enjoy where you live, you have great people, around you and all of that. So that would, patience would definitely be something I would look back and say, just settle down.
I like that. I think that's one we all could look back on and take as well. The second part of Discover the Difference is difference, and put it in context of your next career as a chef. What's that secret ingredient that's helped you find success on your career as you reflect back on it?
I don't know how to necessarily phrase it correct. Basically surrounding myself with, with great people. That's been something, whether it's, I'm fortunate enough to have, hired great people, or just finding that right group that is interested in, one, my success professionally, but then also success personally. It's, being able to have that relationship outside of work with somebody, can be so important. So I think that's just the ability to surround yourself with, really good people.
I mean, there's a lot of commonality in how you are running what you do versus how we run what we do. There's so many words and things you've said that are just so aligned. This question is kind of usually teed up, for maybe not somebody who's an athletic director, but what do you see on the horizon next for you or the university?
The university again is on such this, this great trajectory. Obviously, we're excited about the, the Pac-12 opportunity that's, going to be coming, and it's just continuing to work in a way that, we positively impact the community. And, that's one of the biggest, that was one of the greatest things about Snapdragon. And it goes back to my parents. I had a dad that was a neurosurgeon, and, a mom that was an RN. So their job was out working, helping people get better, helping our community be better. And they really instilled that in me. And so that's something that, we get to do with the institution and the student athletes, or the students and the student athletes that we're graduating with, something like Snapdragon that has created so many different opportunities for, people to, have a good time, if it will. And now you're going to build 4,600 housing units, and it's got to be places people can live, and you're going to have this innovation district where people can work and advance, whatever it is, that discipline is that they're going to advance. So that opportunity to positively impact our community is huge.
I didn't hear anything he said after his parents' jobs, because I'm thinking those two people should have been able to produce somebody who passed physics.
Absolutely.
What else did you say? Because I just kept thinking about that.
That was a genetic mutation.
Yeah, no, I definitely, my both of my sisters are brilliant, and I was the guy that had to study for, ever and ever to, make a 3.2 or something like that. So.
Yeah.
Well, there's more commonality there too.
Yeah.
I agree. You want to wrap us up?
So if people want to, learn more about you and SDSU and what's happening, where should they go?
GoAztecs.com is the website. A lot of great information about the Aztecs and, what we're doing and, the schedule and those types of things. And then obviously SDSU.edu, the campus website, and learn about, what's happening on campus and, opportunities to come to campus. There's always something going on. And we've got a really good, online program that's being developed, online classes where, people who want to maybe get a certificate degree or, just more knowledge or whatever, there's those opportunities too.
Awesome. Well, anytime you need access to business leaders, it sounds like you have a lot of access, but we're happy to pitch in as well because we're all kicking in the same community. So thanks so much for coming in. It was really interesting. Got to learn a lot more than I've ever learned about sports probably in this conversation. So thanks.
Well, good. Well, no, I really appreciate the opportunity. Appreciate the spending the time, and anybody who's associated with me has got to be fantastic.